Welcome to part 16 of The Wizard of Oz. The last time we've been with our characters, Dorothy had summoned the Queen of the Mice because she didn't know where they were. They'd been travelling, trying to get back to Oz from the Wicked Witch's place, and they couldn't find it. So then the Queen of the Mice, she said, why don't you call the winged monkeys? Because you have the golden cap. Aha, hurrah. So she did. And they were just in the midst now of telling them the story of how they became imprisoned. So here we go. As the Monkey King completed his story, Dorothy appeared down and saw the inexperienced shining parsons of the Emerald City earlier than them. She puzzled on the rapid flight of the monkeys, but changed into satisfied the journey turned into over. The unknown creatures set the tourists down cautiously earlier than the gate of the city. The king bowed low to Dorothy, after which flew hastily away, accompanied with the aid of all his band. That turned into an excellent journey, said the little female.
Yes, and a quick manner out of our troubles, answered the lion. How fortunate it became you delivered away that amazing cap.
Chapter 15. The Discovery of Oz the Terrible. The four vacationers walked as much as the incredible gate of the Emerald City and rang the bell. After ringing several instances, it changed open by using the identical guardian of the gates they had met before. "What are you again once more?" he requested in wonder. "Do you no longer see us?" answered the Scarecrow. "But I dear you had a long past to visit the Wicked Witch of the West." "We did go to her," said the Scarecrow. "And she let you move again?" asked the man in wonder. "She could not help it, for she is melted," defined the Scarecrow. "Melted? Well, that is the right information indeed," said the man. "Who melted her?"
It changed into Dorothy, said the lion gravely.
"Good gracious!" exclaimed the man, and he bowed very low indeed before her. Then he led them into his little room and locked the spectacles from the splendid container on all their eyes, simply as he had completed before. Afterward they passed on through the gate into the Emerald City. When the humans heard from the guardian of the gates that Dorothy had melted the Wicked Witch of the West, they all accumulated across the vacationers and observed them in a superb crowd to the Palace of Oz. The soldier with the inexperienced whiskers changed into still on protect before the door. However, he allowed them to go straight in away. And they were again met with the aid of the beautiful inexperienced woman, who showed every of them to their vintage rooms immediately, so that they may rest until the Great Oz became ready to get hold of them. The soldier had the information carried immediately to Oz that Dorothy and the opposite tourists had come back again after destroying the Wicked Witch, but Oz made no reply. They conceived the Great Wizard might send for them right now, but he did now not. They had no word from him day after today, nor the next, nor the subsequent. The waiting turned into tiresome and sporting, and at remaining they grew vexed that the Oz had to treat them in so terrible a style, after sending them to go through hardships and slavery. So the Scarecrow at final requested the Green Girl to take any other messages to Oz, announcing if he did not let them in to look him without delay, they could name the winged monkeys to help them and find out whether he kept his guarantees or now not. When the wizard became given this message, he turned into so fearful that he dispatched word for them to come back to the throne room at 4 minutes after 9 o'clock the next morning. He had as soon as met the winged monkeys inside the land of the West, and he did no longer desire to satisfy them again. The four vacationers passed a sleepless night, each considering the gift Oz had promised to bestow on him. Dorothy fell asleep handiest as soon as, and then she dreamed she became in Kansas, where Aunt Em became telling her now, satisfied she turned into to have her little female at home once more. Promptly at 9 o'clock the following morning, the green-whiskered soldier came to them, and 4 minutes later they all went into the throne room of the Great Oz. Of direction, everyone in all of them expected to see the wizard in the form he had taken before, and all were shocked when they looked about and noticed nobody at all inside the room. They saved close to the door and in the direction of each other, for the stillness of the empty room turned into greater dreadful than any of the paperwork that they had seen Oz take. Presently they heard a solemn voice that regarded to come from some place near the top of the notched dome, and it stated,
I am Oz the Great and Terrible. Why do you are searching for me?
They regarded again in each part of the room, and then seeing no one, Dorothy asked, "Where are you?"
I am anywhere, answered the voice, but to the eyes of not unusual mortals I am invisible. I will now seat myself upon my throne that you can speak with me."
Indeed, the voice regarded just then to come back immediately from the throne itself, so that they walked towards it and stood in a row at the same time as Dorothy said, "We have come to say our promise, O Oz."
"What promise?"
requested Oz. "You promised to send me lower back to Kansas while the Wicked Witch was destroyed," said the woman. "And you promised to offer me brains," stated the Scarecrow.
"And you promised to give me a coronary heart,"
stated the Tin Woodman.
"And you promised to give me courage," stated the Cowardly Lion. "Is the Wicked Witch absolutely destroyed?"
asked the voice, and Dorothy Concepted trembled a touch. "Yes," she replied. "I melted her with a bucket of water."
"Dear me," said the voice. "How surprising. Well, come to me tomorrow, for I have to have time to suppose it over."
"You've had lots of time already," stated the Tin Woodman angrily. "We shan't wait a day longer," stated the Scarecrow. "You need to hold your guarantees to us," exclaimed Dorothy. The Lion thought it was probably as well to frighten the wizard, so he gave a big loud roar, which became so fierce and dreadful that Toto jumped far away from him in alarm and tipped over the display that stood in the corner. As it fell with a crash, they seemed that manner, and the subsequent second they all had been full of marvel, for they saw, standing in just the spot the display had hidden, a big vintage man with a bald head and a wrinkled face, who appeared to be as a great deal surprised as they had been. The Tin Woodman, raising his axe, rushed towards the little man and cried out, "Who are you?" "I am Oz, the great and terrible," said the little man in a trembling voice. "But don't strike me. Please do not, and I'll do something you want me to." Our pals checked him out in marvel and dismay. "I thought Oz became an excellent head," stated Dorothy. "And I thought Oz became a cute lady," said the Scarecrow.
"And I, dear Oz, became a terrible beast," said the Tin Woodman. "And I notion Oz changed into a ball of fire," exclaimed the Lion.
"No, you're all incorrect," said the little man, meekly. "I had been making trust." "Making trust?" cried Dorothy. "Are you not a great wizard?" "Oh, hush, my pricey," he stated. "Don't communicate so loud or you'll be overheard and I shall be ruined. I'm supposed to be a great wizard." "And are you not?" she asked. Not a bit of it, my dear. I'm just a commonplace guy." "You're extra than that," stated the Scarecrow in a grave tone. "You are a humbug." "Exactly so," declared the little guy, rubbing his fingers together as if it thrilled him. "I am a humbug."
"But that is horrible," said the Tin Woodman. "How shall I ever get my coronary heart?" "Or I my courage," requested the Lion.
"Or I my brains," wailed the Scarecrow, wiping the tears from his eyes along with his coat sleeve. "My dear buddies," said Oz, "I pray you now not speak of those little things. Think of me and the terrible problem I'm in it being observed out." "Doesn't all of us else realise you're a humbug?" requested Dorothy. "No one knows it, however you four and myself," spoke back Oz. "I even have fooled each person goodbye that I thought ought to be by no means observed out. It became a high-quality mistake my ever letting you into the throne room. Usually I will now not see even my subjects, and so that they accept as true with I am something horrible." "But I don't recognise," said Dorothy in bewilderment. "How turned into that you appeared to me as first-rate head?" "That becomes certainly one of my hints," answered Oz. "Step this way, please, and I will tell you all about it." He led the manor to a small chamber in the rear of the throne room, and they all accompanied him, he pointing to one nook wherein lay the super head, produced from many thicknesses of paper, and with a cautiously painted face. "This I swung from the ceiling with the aid of a twine," said Oz. "I stood in the back of the display and pulled a thread to make the eyes move and the mouth open." "But how approximately the voice?" she inquired. "Oh, I'm a ventriloquist," said the little guy. "I can throw the sound of my voice wherever I desire, so your concept it turned into coming out of the head. Here are the other things I used to deceive you." He showed the Scarecrow the dress and the mask he had worn whilst he seemed to be a lovable lady, and the Tin Woodman noticed that this terrible beast was not anything but a variety of skins sewn together with slats to keep their facets out. As for the ball of fire, the fake wizard had hung that also from the ceiling. It became actually a ball of cotton, but when oil was poured upon it, the ball burned fiercely. "Really," said the Scarecrow, "you have to be ashamed of yourself for being this kind of humbug." "I am. I truly am," spoke the little man sorrowfully. "However, it became the simplest component I ought to do. Sit down, please. There are masses of chairs, and I will tell you my story." So they sat down and listened, even as he instructed the subsequent tale. "I was born in Omaha." "Why, that isn't always very a long way from Kansas," cried Dorothy. "No, however, it's further from here," he stated, shaking his head at her alas. "When I grew up, I had become a ventriloquist, and at that I turned into thoroughly trained by using a wonderful grasp. I can imitate any form of fowl or beast." Here he mewed so like a kitten that Toto pricked up his ears and seemed everywhere to peer in which she was. "After a time," continued Oz, "I tired of that and became a balloonist." "What is that?" asked Dorothy. "A guy who goes up in a balloon on circus day that allows you to draw a crowd of humans together and get them to pay to peer the circus," he explained. "Oh," she stated, "I recognise." "Well, some day I went up in a balloon and the ropes got twisted so that I couldn't come down once more. It went manner up above the clouds thus far that a contemporary of air struck it and carried it many, many miles away. For an afternoon and a night I travelled via the air, and at the morning of the second day I woke up and discovered the balloon floating over odd and delightful USA. It came down progressively, and I became no longer harm apiece, but I found myself within the midst of an abnormal place, who, seeing me come from the clouds, notioned I changed into a fantastic wizard. Of path I allowed them to assume so, due to the fact they had been fearful of me and promised to do something I wished them to do. Just to amuse myself and maintain the coolest people busy, I ordered them to construct this city and my palace, and they did all of it willingly and properly. Then I concept as the United States of America changed into so inexperienced and beautiful, I would call it the Emerald City, and to make the name fit higher I put inexperienced spectacles on all of the human beings in order that the entirety they noticed was inexperienced. "But isn't everything right here green?" requested Dorothy. "No greater than in every other city," spoke back Oz. "However, while you wear the green spectacles, why of path everything you see looks green to you. The Emerald City turned into constructed a wonderful a few years in the past, for I turned it into a young guy when the balloon introduced me here, and I am completely antique man now. But my human beings have worn inexperienced glasses on their eyes. Goodbye. That maximum of them supposes clearly is an Emerald City, and it surely is a stunning location abounding in jewels and valuable metals, and each good element that is needed to make one satisfied. I have been taught to the human beings, and they prefer me, but ever on the grounds that this palace became built, I actually have closed myself up and would no longer see any of them. One of my finest fears changed into the witches, for whilst I had no magical powers at all, I quickly discovered out the witches have been honestly able to do superb matters. There were 4 of them in this US of A, and that they ruled the folks that live inside the north and south and east and west. Fortunately, the witches of the north and south were desirable, and I knew they might do me no harm. But the witches of east and west have been terribly wicked, and they had no longer concept I changed into more powerful than themselves. They could in reality have destroyed me. As it turned into, I lived in lethal fear of them for many years, so that you can believe how thrilled I changed into once I heard your house had fallen on the wicked witch of the east. When you came to me, I became inclined to vow something if you would handiest eliminate the opposite witch. However, now that you have melted her, I am ashamed to say that I cannot hold my promises." "I suppose you are a very bad guy," stated Dorothy. "Oh no, my dear, I'm certainly an excellent guy, but I'm a totally terrible wizard, I have to admit." "Can't you supply me brains?" asked the Scarecrow. "You don't need them. You are getting to know something every day. A child has brains, however it would not recognise a good deal. Experience is the simplest thing that brings knowledge, and the longer you are in the world, the greater enjoy you're certain to get." "That may additionally all be proper," stated the Scarecrow, "but I will be very unhappy except you give me brains." The false wizard checked him out cautiously. "Well," he said with a sigh, "I'm now not lots of a magician as I stated, but if you'll come to me tomorrow morning I will stuff your head with brains. I can't tell you how to use them, however. You should locate that out for yourself." Oh, thank you, cried the Scarecrow. I'll discover a manner to apply them in no way worry.
But how approximately my courage?
Asked the Lion anxiously. You have plenty of braveness, I'm sure, replied Oz. All you need is self-assurance in yourself. There isn't any living issue that isn't always afraid whilst it faces risk. The true braveness is in going through risk whilst you are afraid, and that type of courage you have got in masses.
Perhaps I even have. However, I'm scared just the equal, stated the Lion. I shall truly be very sad except you provide me the type of braveness that makes one forget about he's afraid.
Very properly, I will come up with that type of courage the next day, replied Oz.
How about my coronary heart? Asked the Tin Woodman.
Why, as for that, answered Oz, I assume you are wrong to need a heart. It makes most people sad. If you handiest knew it, you are in success now not to have a heart.
That ought to be a remember of opinion, said the Tin Woodman. For my element I will bear all of the sadness without a murmur, if you'll deliver me the coronary heart.
Very nicely, spoke back Oz meekly. Come to me the next day, and you shall have a heart. I even have played wizard for so many years that I might also well continue the component a touch longer. And now, stated Dorothy, how am I to get lower back to Kansas? What should think about that? Responded the little man. Give me 3 days to keep in mind the problem, and I'll try to discover a manner to carry you over the desert. In the intervening time you shall all be dealt with as my visitors, and while you stay inside the palace my human beings will wait upon you and obey your slightest want. There is most effective one thing I ask in return for my assist, along with its miles. You should keep my secret and inform nobody I am a humbug. They agreed to mention not anything of what they had discovered, and returned to their rooms in high spirits. Even Dorothy had the desire. The great and terrible humbug, as she called him, would discover a way to send her lower back to Kansas, and if he did, she'd become willing to forgive him for the whole thing.